A 19-year-old girl with the voice of an angel and the face of a supermodel signs what should have been the deal of a lifetime: 10 albums, with one of the most powerful men in music. But here's what's chilling about Cassie Ventura's story. That contract wasn't a gateway to stardom, it was a cage. And the man who held the key would spend the next 11 years systematically destroying everything she was meant to become. However, to understand the full story of Cassie Ventura, we have to go back to where it all began. The Golden Girl. It's 2005. Cassie Ventura was everything the music industry dreams of finding. She had already conquered the modeling world at 15, walked New York Fashion Week at 16, graced magazine covers before most people graduate high school. But music was her real passion. When producer Ryan Leslie discovered her at a club that year, he knew he'd found something special. They created Me and You Together, a song so infectious, so perfectly crafted that it would change everything. Therefore, when Sean Diddy Combs heard that track in a club, he didn't just want to sign Cassie, he wanted to own her completely. The deal was unprecedented: 10 albums. In an era where even superstars like Rihanna and Britney Spears signed for fewer albums, Cassie was locked in for a decade. She was 19. He was 36. But here's what makes this deal so insidious. It wasn't designed to make Cassie successful. It was designed to trap her. Those 10 albums meant Combs owned her creativity, her voice, her future for potentially the next decade or more. She thought she was signing her ticket to the top, but she was actually signing away her freedom. The meteoric rise and the golden cage. Me and You exploded like a supernova. Number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, 27 weeks on the charts, one of the biggest singles of 2006. For a debut artist, those numbers were astronomical. But here's where the story takes its first dark turn. That massive success should have been the beginning of an incredible career. Instead, it became the peak. Cassie would never again reach those heights, not because she lacked talent, but because the man who controlled her career had other plans. The 10-album deal that seemed like a blessing revealed itself as a curse. Over the next several years, Cassie recorded hundreds of songs, hundreds, but most would never see the light of day. Because Sean Combs wasn't interested in making Cassie a star, he was interested in making Cassie his property. Combs would blame Cassie for the lack of musical output, telling her that if she wasn't releasing music, she wasn't doing her job. But then he would refuse to release the songs she recorded. He assigned his employee, James Cruz, to manage her career, but Cruz later told Cassie he was managing her with one hand tied behind his back. He couldn't work as a normal manager. He had to make every decision through other parties. The control begins. What happened next reveals the psychology of an abuser. Combs didn't just want Cassie's talent, he wanted total control. He controlled what she wore, who she spoke to, where she lived. He paid for her apartments but kept the keys. He could show up anytime, unannounced. Her career became what she would later call busy work, recording songs that would never be released, working with his engineers who reported back to him. Everything designed to keep her busy while keeping her under his thumb. When Cassie tried to take other jobs, modeling gigs that could pay $20,000 for a single appearance, Combs would veto them. He had the power to do that because of that contract, but the control went deeper than her career. Combs began introducing what he called voyeurism into their relationship. He wanted to watch her with other men. At first, Cassie was confused, uncomfortable, but she loved him. And when someone controls your career, your finances, your entire life, saying no becomes almost impossible. These encounters, which Combs called freak-offs, would become a central part of their relationship for years. Here's how they worked. Combs would have his staff book hotel rooms in cities like Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. They would set up the rooms with baby oil, lubricants, colorful lights, and scented candles. Cassie was forced to find male escorts online. Combs would approve them, pay them between $1,500 and $6,000 in cash. Then he would direct these encounters like a movie, telling them what to do while he watched and recorded everything. These sessions would last for days. Cassie would become so dehydrated and exhausted that she needed IV fluids to recover. She developed an opioid addiction just to numb herself through the experience. But here's the most sinister part. Those recordings became Combs' insurance policy. Whenever Cassie tried to leave or resist, he would threaten to release them, to destroy her reputation, to end her career. She testified that she felt like a sex worker, that this had become her actual job. The cycle of abuse. The pattern that emerged is textbook emotional and physical abuse. The violence started early. If Cassie made the wrong facial expression, she'd be hit. If she took too long in the bathroom, she'd be dragged down hallways by her hair. If she talked to another man, she'd be kicked and stomped. But here's what makes this story so insidious. Between the violence came moments of what felt like love. Combs would give her pet names, tell her to call him Pop Pop like her grandfather, make her feel special, make her feel chosen. It's a cycle that traps so many victims. The abuse followed by affection, the terror followed by tenderness. It keeps you hoping things will get better, while gradually eroding your sense of what's normal. Cassie tried to leave multiple times, but Combs would send his staff to bring her back. When she dated rapper Kid Cudi in 2011, Combs threatened to release those recordings of their intimate encounters. He told her he would blow up Kid Cudi's car. Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway shortly after. That's when Cassie's mother received a terrifying email. Cassie was flying home for Christmas, bruised and beaten, writing that Combs was threatening to hurt her and Kid Cudi. He demanded $20,000 from her family. Her mother took out a home equity loan to pay him, not because they owed the money, but because they were terrified for their daughter's life. The lost years for 11 years. This was Cassie's reality. A career that should have soared instead stagnated. She released just one mixtape between 2006 and 2019. One mixtape in 13 years. Meanwhile, those hundreds of songs she recorded gathered dust in vaults. The freak-offs became what she described as her job. Weekly encounters that would last for days. She developed an opioid addiction to numb herself. She suffered frequent urinary tract infections. She experienced PTSD symptoms, including sleepwalking and blackouts. In 2016, at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles, Combs' mask finally slipped completely. Security cameras captured him, punching Cassie in the face, throwing her to the ground, kicking her repeatedly, and dragging her down a hallway. When she tried to leave, he threw glass vases at her, shattering them throughout the corridor. Hotel security footage captured it all. Combs paid $50,000 to make that footage disappear. But in today's digital age, nothing stays buried forever. The final assault came in 2018. After a dinner that was supposed to be their closure conversation, Combs forced his way into Cassie's apartment and raped her, while she repeatedly said no and tried to push him away. That was the moment Cassie decided she'd had enough. The reckoning. Breaking free from an abuser is never easy, but Cassie found her strength in love. She met Alex Fine, a personal trainer who showed her what healthy love looked like. In 2019, she married him, had children, built the life she'd always dreamed of. But the trauma of those 11 years didn't disappear. In November 2023, 5 years after that final assault, Cassie filed a federal lawsuit against Sean Combs. The charges were devastating: rape, physical abuse, sex trafficking, and a pattern of control that lasted over a decade. Combs' lawyer called it blatant blackmail. They claimed she was just seeking a payday. But here's what happened next that proved them wrong. Combs settled the lawsuit in just 24 hours, $20 million, the fastest settlement in legal history for a case of this magnitude. If the allegations were false, why settle so quickly? Why pay so much? Because Cassie wasn't lying, and Combs knew it. But the settlement wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Federal prosecutors launched a criminal investigation. In March 2024, they raided Combs' homes in Miami and Los Angeles. They found drugs, weapons, and over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, evidence of the very encounters Cassie had described. In September 2024, Sean Combs was arrested on federal charges of racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. In May 2025, his trial began in Manhattan Federal Court. This is where Cassie's story reaches its most powerful moment. 8 months pregnant with her third child, she took the witness stand as the government's star witness. For 4 grueling days, she testified about 11 years of abuse. She described the forced sexual encounters with male escorts, the violence, the control, the way Combs used his business empire to facilitate his crimes. She identified 13 different male escorts she was forced to have sex with at Combs' direction. She explained how his staff would set up hotel rooms, provide supplies, and clean up afterward, how the encounters were filmed and used as blackmail. The defense tried to paint her as a willing participant. They showed text messages where she and Combs expressed love for each other, trying to argue the relationship was mutually toxic, not criminal. But Cassie's response silenced the courtroom. When the defense tried to suggest she was motivated by money, Cassie said something that exposed the true horror of her experience. She testified that she would give back every penny of that $20 million settlement if it meant she never had to participate in those humiliating encounters again. If it meant she could have her agency and autonomy back. The trial is still ongoing as this video is being made. Other witnesses have testified, including Cassie's former best friend, Kerry Morgan, who described seeing Combs attack Cassie with a hammer, trying to break down her apartment door. Dawn Richard from the group Danity Kane testified about witnessing Combs assault Cassie and how he later threatened that people go missing if they talk. If convicted on all charges, Sean Combs faces a mandatory minimum of 15 years in prison, with the possibility of life behind bars. Cassie Ventura's story is tragic, not just because of what was done to her, but because of what was stolen from her. We'll never know how high she could have soared if she'd been free to fly. We'll never hear those hundreds of songs that were recorded, but never released. We'll never see the full potential of that 19-year-old girl who walked into Sean Combs' office with stars in her eyes. But here's what we do know. Cassie's courage to speak her truth has already saved countless other women. Her testimony helped convict one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry. Her story has exposed a system that allowed abuse to flourish in the shadows for decades. The girl who was once trapped in a golden cage has become the woman who helped tear down the entire system that built it. That 19-year-old who signed away her freedom has reclaimed it in the most powerful way possible, by telling the truth.